Welcome to the League of Women Voters candidate interviews for the 5th Congressional District of Massachusetts. This event is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Winchester and Waltham. My name is Joan Garnis, and as a member of the Waltham League, it is my pleasure to conduct these interviews today. 4 candidates are running for the vacancy created when Edward Markey, our former congressman, was elected to the U.S. Senate. Before we begin the candidate interviews, just a few words about the League of Women Voters. Membership is open to women and men, and throughout its 92-year history, the League has built a solid reputation for providing fair and enlightening candidate forums for the benefit of voters. In addition, our activities support informed participation in government and increased public understanding of major policy issues. Based on grassroots membership input, the League also seeks to influence public policy through education and advocacy. The U.S. Constitution clearly enumerates the responsibilities of Congress. They include regulating domestic and international trade, declaring war, and maintaining and supporting the military. Each congressman's duties vary according to their stature and party affiliation. The House has many committees that focus on a particular responsibility, as does the Senate. Committee examples include energy, Veterans Affairs, housing, and foreign relations. Last but not least, a congressman acts as a conduit between the federal government and local authorities and residents of the district that he or she represents. And now I will explain the format and ground rules for the candidate interviews. I will present brief biographies of each candidate before I interview them. Each candidate will present a short opening statement of 2 minutes. The order of the interviews was determined earlier by a coin toss. Questions have been submitted by the public in advance to be asked of the candidates, who will have up to 1 minute 30 seconds to respond. As moderator, I may follow up on questions, and when I do, I will state the amount of time for the candidate's response. Each candidate will present a 1-minute closing statement. Candidate Catherine Clark is unable to appear due to scheduling conflicts. She has submitted a statement which I will read before my closing remarks. Frank Adivanola is the Republican nominee who won in a 3-way primary with 49% of the vote, compared with 26% and 24% for the other 2 candidates. He was born and raised in Malden, Massachusetts, and graduated from Williams College. He earned his Master of Liberal Arts from the Harvard Extension School, MBA and MS from the University of Maryland, and MS in Biotechnology from Johns Hopkins University. For 6 years, Frank worked and taught in biomedical research as a doctoral candidate and fellow in molecular and cell biology with dissertation advisor Nobel laureate Marshall Nirenberg at the National Institutes of Health. He graduated from Suffolk University Law School, where he received his JD and then Master of Laws in Biomedicine and Health Law. Since graduating from Williams and continuously during his career, Frank has owned and operated several businesses. Frank teaches Introduction to Law and Life Sciences at local colleges. He also owns an educational publishing company. Mr. Adivanola, would you please give your opening statement?
Well, thank you, and nice to have you. It's a great service that the League of Women Voters offers the candidates to have a chance to present their views and to let the voters learn more about us. So again, I'm Frank Adivanola, and I'm running in this race because I think this country needs strong leaders that can go to Washington and get the business of the people done. So in the 5th Congressional District, which many of you know is the region that spans all the way from Winthrop all the way out to Holliston, Moosoe, Framingham, and so forth, we have a lot of large industries in this area. We have, for example, biotechnology, we have healthcare, we have universities. I have some experience in these particular industries, and I want to go to Washington and advocate on behalf of the citizens in the district. In addition, what I also have is I have small business experience, because it's the small businesses in America which are the driver of the economy. So I'm very sensitive to the needs and concerns of the small business owner, and I want to make sure that the government is there to facilitate an economic prosperity that many of us desire in this country. Now, this is, in fact, the 8th time that my opponent, Catherine Clark, has a scheduling conflict and not available to participate in a debate. It's very important that the voters have a chance to participate in this process of learning about the candidates. And many voters tell me that it's unacceptable for Catherine Clark to be so arrogant as not to be here to make herself available. She's going to submit a statement, very easy to do. She's going to have a statement prepared at her office, and it's going to be read here today. You're going to learn about me by in fact seeing me answer what could be some difficult questions, and you're going to learn in great detail about the way I think and what my values and perspectives are, and what kind of job I will do for you. In fact, if I'm a candidate and I'm not willing to be here to let you learn about me, then what kind of constituent services do you think I'd offer you? So I'm Frank Adavanola. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to answer some questions, and I hope you consider voting for me on December 10th.
Thank you. Now we start the question and answer part of the interview. Candidates have not seen the questions in advance. Questions were solicited in advance from the public. Responses will be 1 minute, 30 seconds. I may follow up if it seems appropriate and will state the time for a response. There will be approximately 10 to 11 questions in the time that we have. When you arrive in Congress, what will be your top priorities for the 5th District?
The top priorities for the 5th District stem from what I hear from the voters. And what most people are concerned about in the Commonwealth, as well as throughout the entire country, is jobs and economy. So I want to put my focus on ways in which the economy can be stimulated to allow people to have greater prosperity, to allow people to have more security in their job, and to provide a better future for themselves and their families if they have one. So, for example, the current administration had a recommendation that they would give a tax credit to small businesses that hire people. Now, unfortunately, this never went into effect. But because it was talked about, many business owners about 2 years ago decided that they would stop hiring some individuals for a short period of time, so that when this tax credit took effect, there would be a larger differential between before the tax credit, how many employees were on the payroll, and then after the tax credit took effect, so that there would be an advantage to a small business owner to hire people. Unfortunately, that never took hold, and so as a result of that, that contributed to a stalled economy. We had a very difficult time in this country recently, and the difficult time stems from the fact that jobs and economy are forefront. And so what we need in this administration, what we need from our congressmen, are solutions to problems, solutions to how do we get people back to work, and how do we have a vibrant, economic, robust economy here in the 5th Congressional District.
Thank you. The term gridlock is increasingly used to describe Congress. What would you do to make the legislative process work more effectively?
Well, I think the reason why we have gridlock is because we have too much partisanship. We have people that are actually obligated to their party leaders. And when a representative gets elected to office and they become obligated to their party leader, they lose their objectivity, and they also lose their ability to think productively and to think independently of leadership. So the way we can break gridlock is to get people into Washington that are not career politicians. If you're a career politician, like my opponent happens to be, you're obligated to people that helped you move up that ladder. So when you're obligated to people, you have to pay back favors that were given to you, because that's just the process of being supported along the way of being supported in this event of being elected to office. So what I suggest we need to do in this country is we need to get rid of career politicians. It's not the way the system was designed, and an immediate benefit would be to have the representatives go to the district and learn what's important for the people. And when we go back to Congress and we focus on what are the issues affecting individuals within the district, we're going to see that although we may have different means to get to the end, when we have a common end, we can work through the solution. So no rubber stamping, and we need to have people that focus on the voters.
As a follow-up, and you will have 30 seconds, is the two-party system working?
Well, there are different groups of people that align themselves with one party or another. Unfortunately, we've seen a greater dichotomy. We've seen a moving of both parties. So we have the Republican Party, which has tried to preserve some conservative values in the United States, and some people feel that those values are too extreme. And we've also had the Democratic Party. And if you're a Democrat out there listening to this today, you really want to investigate the Democratic Party of today, because who's running the show in the Democratic Party is progressive liberals. And if you're a progressive liberal, then that's great. But if you're not a progressive liberal, you want to understand that.
Thank you. Do you agree with the Citizens United decision, which opened up corporation spending to political campaigns?
Well, that's an interesting question. We talk about that in class, and there's a lot of people that have an opinion on that. But I need to draw your attention to one point. If you read the 94-page decision about Citizens United, what always seems to be left out of the discussion is right after the word corporation, there's an ampersand. And after the ampersand, there's unions. So what we're really talking about is we're talking about corporations and unions. And it's very unfortunate that we don't include both of those in our discussion, because that is what the decision stands for. Now, whether we agree or whether we disagree with Citizens United, we want to respect the fact that this comes under a First Amendment protection. It's an amendment for public speech. Now, I may or may not like what someone says, but does that mean that I want to inhibit their ability to have that dialogue? It's very important in our political process and in our society as we have it that people can express their views. And when people express their views, it's believed that that's going to minimize violence and allow people to come up with a dialogue that brings a common ground. So we do have political speech, we do have money in corporations, and if you were to look at my opponent to see the money that she's received, raised over $1.1 million, you're going to see that most of that money comes from special interests in union. So if we want to talk about shutting down Citizens United, we're also going to be talking about inhibiting the ability of unions to express themselves.
As a follow-up, do we need disclosure of funding sources? And you will have 30 seconds.
It's very important to have disclosure of funding sources. We need to know who is supporting the candidates. So I would be in favor of, in fact, having disclosure of where the money comes from.
Thank you. Do you think that financial markets need government regulation?
Well, that's a broad question, and I was just having this discussion recently. So let's say we go back to the year 2007, 2008. We had a debacle in the financial industry. We had what's called securitization. And during that time, many people suffered serious loss of their home and the future for themselves, where the interest rate had spiked up dramatically. And during the same time, we had a congressman in Massachusetts, Barney Frank, that was telling us that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac was doing fine. If we study Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, we're going to see that they had a lot of problems in that industry. And in fact, those problems were shielded from the public. So we do need to have industry regulations. What we've done as a result of that is we've produced too many regulations for corporations and for businesses. So I don't believe that any bank is too big to fail. What had happened, though, is that the banks were too big to fail because there was not a mechanism in place that would allow the disposition of those assets of those banks. So we do need to anticipate that when corporations and businesses make mistakes, they need to dissolve themselves and they need to actually go out of business. So we need to have mechanisms in place that allows this orderly process of a disposition of assets of these financial institutions.
One follow-up. What do you think should be the first step? You have 30 seconds.
The first step for what?
For the regulation of government. Government regulation of financial institutions.
Well, I think the regulation of financial institution from a consumer's point of view should be full disclosure. We saw many people getting loans for homes recently in the years 2005, 2006, and thereabouts, where they did not appreciate what the new interest rate would be and how much it would cost to be able to maintain that mortgage. So the consumer at all times needs to have knowledge so that they can make an informed decision whether they think and are willing to get into that mortgage. So regulation of disclosure so that people can make an informed decision.
Thank you. It has been 12 years since 9/11. Is it time to review our Homeland Security policy to evaluate its effectiveness and the trade-offs we are making with our privacy?
Oh, absolutely. Now, here's where my opponent and I disagree, and the reason why I can say that is Catherine Clark had sponsored a bill that would allow the state of Massachusetts to invade our privacy more than what they do. So I'm a big believer in the Constitution, and I'm also a believer in the amendments that are associated with the Constitution. And we have a Fourth Amendment protection which says unreasonable search and seizure. And what I mean by that is we actually have the NSA, which is invading our rights to privacy. So as we, as law-abiding citizens, should be secure in our email and in our telephone conversations. If there's probable cause, which means that in fact there's a reason to believe that someone is associated with illegal activity, then a search warrant is required. And so I believe that there are legal mechanisms in place which allows the federal government to apprehend and anticipate these events that would hurt us as far as terrorism. But in the process of trying to identify terrorism, they should not be invading our privacy. So in fact, we need to look at this. The challenges are going to change. How the threats occur is going to change, but our constitutional protections in the Fourth Amendment should be preserved.
Do you support any federal controls on firearms? If so, to what extent?
Sure, I believe that we have a control of firearms. It's called the Second Amendment. And so the Second Amendment protects a law-abiding citizen's right to own a firearm. If an individual has no violation of law enforcement, if an individual is a citizen of the United States and therefore qualifies to own a firearm, then in fact they are entitled to own that firearm as a protection called the Second Amendment. Just like we have protections under the First Amendment, we have the Second Amendment. Now, if we want to talk about crime, that's a different issue. And the reason is that we need to separate lawful possession of firearms from the problem that we have in society, which is violence and gun violence. And many times, if we look at who creates the violent problems associated with guns, those are individuals that use that gun which was obtained illegally. Now, it doesn't matter if you legally own a gun or you illegally own a gun. If you break the law, you should be punished, and you should be punished severely. But we should not abridge the freedoms of individuals to own firearms, because that right is protected in the Second Amendment.
Thank you. Given current realities, do you think we should continue to enforce the Affordable Care Act?
No, I don't feel that we should enforce the Affordable Care Act. And I think to enforce the Affordable Care Act is going to do a tremendous disservice to the American people. Now, when we talk about health care, we should talk about three things. We should talk about accessibility, affordability, and quality of care. Now, we do have an issue with, in fact, affordability of health care. It's about 17% of our GDP. We also have a problem with accessibility. We have 30, 40 million individuals that don't have health care access. So we do need to have reforms in health care. But unfortunately, as we move to socialized medicine, and that is where we're moving, as we move to socialized medicine, and as we look at all the examples in the world of socialized medicine, we're going to see a tremendous decrease in the quality of care. America is known for quality of care, so we need to fix the problems associated with inaccessible health care for some individuals. We need to reach out as a society. We need to help people that can't help themselves. We need to be there as a society to do that. But we don't need to disassemble the entire healthcare system in America to now change it to what's called the Affordable Care Act. What we're seeing with the website is only the tip of the iceberg. We can solve websites. There's a lot of people that do that every day of the week. But can we continue to have high quality care when we have the government in control of that process? Can you give me an example as a viewer of where the government has spearheaded a particular activity in this country and has done it with excellence? And I don't think we're going to have many examples of that. The private sector is where healthcare should be.
A follow-up to which you have referred in your answer. What would you replace the current Affordable Care Act with?
And how long is my
30
response?
seconds.
30 seconds, sure. So I would suggest that we don't need to replace the healthcare system in America, but to address the problems associated with this, we need to allow insurance to be bought across state borders. And we need to do that because we need a competitive marketplace. There are some companies that are able to provide healthcare insurance more effectively, and that needs to be available for people. Under the Affordable Care Act, you can only buy insurance in your county. You can't even buy insurance in your entire state. So we've actually moved in the opposite direction. And what we also need to address briefly is we need to address the fact that pre-existing conditions, there should be no exclusion for pre-existing conditions.
Thank you. Do you believe that we can afford to continue Social Security as it is through the next generation?
Okay, well, Social Security, it's not an option. And the reason why it's not an option is because it's an obligation that we have to senior citizens that have paid into the system. So we need to make sure that Social Security survives. And unfortunately, many politicians, what they do is they play a psychological game with seniors. And they talk about Social Security to scare them. And we shouldn't be playing psychological games with seniors. Social Security is what they're entitled to because it's an earned benefit they paid into the system. The way we fix Social Security is we have more people working. When we improve the economy and we have more people paying into the system, we will see an improvement in the health of the Social Security Trust Fund. And what we also need to do is we need to make sure that we have a lockbox on the Social Security Trust Fund. That money's paid in there for the benefit of seniors and Social Security, and so politicians should not be able to go to it like a piggy bank and borrow money against the trust fund. It should be there as a protected asset for seniors that have paid in during their working years.
As a follow-up, what changes, if any, would you propose to make to Social Security and/or other aspects of our retirement system? And this time you have 1 minute.
Okay, well, I think I've addressed a couple of those, and one way that we could address it is to increase the base of individuals, the number of people that are working in the marketplace. And when we have more people working, that's going to be greater number of contributions by the workforce. That's going to increase the health of Social Security. The other thing we need to do is we need to make sure that that trust fund is off limits. It should not be borrowed against under any example. It should be there to be protected and to be used for seniors when they retire. And of course, there's some people with SSDI and so forth. But primarily, Social Security is there for seniors. And the other thing we need to do, as I say, is we need to make sure there's a lockbox on that. We don't want to use it as a political football and try to scare seniors into voting for a particular candidate because they have some magical answers on how we're going to protect Social Security. There's no question we must protect it. And there's no question that more contributions into the system by working Americans will increase the health of that fund.
Thank you. Income inequality has produced extremes in the distribution of wealth. Is this a problem? And why do you think this has occurred?
Well, I'm certainly going to tell you, I'll be honest with you here. I think, for example, we have Bill Gates. He and I have an extremely different income. So we have entrepreneurs that are out there that have made millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and there are examples of those people that have earned a large amount of money. Should we penalize them for their initiative to go out there and provide goods and services? Well, if you want to penalize them, the way you do that, I believe, is at the supermarket or at the cash register. So if there's a product that you don't like, the way to protest that is to not buy that product. So I won't mention a particular department store, but there's a department store that I don't shop at, I never have shopped at, and there's also a store, the same store my wife has never entered. And that's our way to protest. So if we don't think that workers are being treated properly because they earn too little money as an employee of that company, then I protest that every day I drive by that type of store. So we want to have encouragement for people that want to go out there and take risks, for entrepreneurs, for business people that want to grow a business. We want to have that. Unfortunately, since the 60s, we've had about 17% of the people that live at or near the poverty level. And with all the redistribution of wealth, with all the social programs we've had, we don't really see an improvement of that number. So it's very unfortunate that many people struggle in life. But what we definitely need to do is we need to ensure that we take away the impediments for people to better themselves. And through application of hard work and effort, opportunity should be there for people. And so I feel that we need to remove any discrimination for individuals in the workforce and to provide that opportunity.
I have a couple of follow-ups to that. You've alluded to some of the solutions already. What, if anything, should be done to reduce or reverse this trend? And you have 1 minute.
Well, I don't know that we need to discourage people from being productive, but what we need to do is, again, provide tools for those people that want to enter the workforce and to be productive. And so the way we can do that, as I mentioned earlier, is we need to remove discrimination. We need to make sure that opportunity is available for those people that want to apply themselves. We also don't want to make people dependent upon government. It becomes very easy, and a lot of studies have been done, when the benefits associated with unemployment, which hopefully is a short-term problem, or with welfare, which may be a more systematic long-term problem, when those benefits equal about 70% of what a person would make in the workforce, many people decide not to enter the workforce. So we need to have a sliding scale of benefits where we help people the greatest amount in the early stages of their unfortunate situation in which they find themselves. And then we need to have those benefits decrease over time. We need to provide job training, and we need to provide opportunity for people to join the workforce and to be productive.
One further follow-up. Should the minimum wage be raised? Why or why not? And again, you have 1 minute.
Well, it all depends. If I'm a college student, I think the minimum wage should not be raised. And the reason for that is the number of jobs that are going to be available for people is going to decrease dramatically. And if there are people that find themselves at minimum wage, I certainly hope that that's a temporary situation in which they find themselves. I honestly believe that when people work hard, they can move ahead in life. We need to have people get a foothold into the market of employment. And once people are in the marketplace of employment, nobody should be looking at a minimum wage job as a long-term prospect. Minimum wage jobs are there to allow people to gain some skills, to gain some experience. And again, as being an employer and hiring and training many people, I know that some people shine, and they are certainly worth more to me. And at any time a person is worth more than what they're being paid, any reasonable employer wants to increase their pay so that they don't lose that employee. So we want to have jobs available for entry-level workers, again, college students, for people lacking skills. And if we increase the minimum wage, we're going to pass that cost on to the consumer.
Here's the next question. Thank you. Would you vote militarily to intervene, and to what extent, in the following circumstances? And I will name 3 circumstances. If Iran is surreptitiously building nuclear weapons, if Israel invades Syria, if Syria invades Israel.
Okay, we'll take them one at a time then. And this is a minute and a half, 30 seconds each.
Half.
Okay, fair enough. So we need to be very careful about the situation that's unfolding in Iran. And I would say that I am not in support of the administration's proposal for removing the sanctions against Iran. And so we have Secretary of State Kerry from Massachusetts saying that they have a landmark proposal there to remove the sanctions. I don't feel that's the right answer to the problem that we have in Iran. And the reason why I say that is we need to recognize that not all Iranians and not all people from Persia are of this nature. But we need to be careful. If some individuals get control of a nuclear weapon, they may have 2 things that they want to do. First of all, to build the weapon, and second of all, to use it. And again, that may be a minority of all people. It may be a small number of all of the population, but we need to ensure that there is no military weapon available for hostile people. So it's very important that we remove that threat of a development of a nuclear weapon, and I don't feel this new proposal of a treaty is, in fact, not a treaty, but a peace accord with them is going to work. That was a minute and a half?
It goes very fast.
No.
That was a
sorry,
minute and a half.
Stop. I'm sorry. You should have, excuse me. I should have put up the 30 second.
We have 30 seconds
I would
more.
think I'm pretty good with time, and it just didn't seem right to me. But anyway, so we do need to recognize that Israel is our ally, and we want to work with Israel to make sure that their future is secure. We need to make sure that there are no immediate threats to Israel, and so I'm in full support of 2 things, of helping Israel make sure that their borders are secure and that they are safe as a country. And the other thing that I'm in support of is a no proliferation treaty. There are many countries that have nuclear weapons, and in fact, it's unfortunate that we have this threat available, but in fact, we want to have a non-proliferation. We don't want more countries to have access to nuclear weapons when they can get in the wrong hands.
Thank you. Do we have time for number 11? What do you think is the primary problem caused by illegal immigration, and what would you do to fix it?
Well, the primary problem caused by illegal immigration is what I hear when I talk to people that are legal immigrants. And the primary problem is that the people that come here legally, that spend the time, that make the application, that wait the requisite amount of period necessary to immigrate into this country, they are upset that there are many people coming to this country illegally. So they are the people that are most upset about the fact that we have allowed in this country a large number of people to enter the country and in fact are receiving benefits. So my opponent, Catherine Clark, proposes that no one should be required to have a valid Social Security number when taxpayer resources are used to give them public assistance. She also says that if we identify, and you can check her voting record, if we identify somebody that's here illegally, they should be in line just like a legal citizen, such as a senior, or such as a veteran, to get public housing. And the other thing that she proposes is self-declaration. So if I'm from Massachusetts, I could say that I live in California if the benefits are greater in California. So those are some of the things she proposes. And that's wrong for a number of reasons. It's wrong because society should help people that need help, and it's wrong because we as taxpayers pay into a fund and we want to help people that require assistance. So what we need to do is we need to de-incentivize those people that come here illegally. Employers should be punished when they hire a person not qualified to work in the United States, and we should also reduce the amount of benefits for a person that comes here illegally, so we take away the incentive. I am for immigration. I am for legal immigration. And I think that we have a mechanism in place, and I know that we have a mechanism in place that allows them to come here.
Thank you for your answers. Now it is time for your 1-minute closing statement.
Okay, well, thank you for having me today. So if you had a chance to watch this presentation and discussion that we had today, you know that I was here and I was taking some questions. I know you may agree with many of the things I say, and you may not agree with all of what I say. But what I want to propose to you is that I'm a person that comes from the private sector. I'm not a career politician. I'm going to be a person that's responsible to the voters in the 5th Congressional District. Unlike my opponent, Catherine Clark, I was born here in the district. I went to school in the district, and I understand what it's like to be from Massachusetts. I believe in the United States, and I think that we have a great country here in this opportunity of an experiment done in 1776 and moving forward. Of course, there's ways we need to improve this country, but that doesn't mean we need to disassemble the structure of the American way of life. We need to improve the country, but we need to preserve our heritage as well. So we move forward with improvements. And again, I'm not a career politician, and I took the time to be here to answer some questions. And again, maybe you didn't like all of what I said, or maybe you don't agree with all I said, but the question is to you, did you learn what Catherine Clark has to say?
Thank you very much, Mr. Adivanola.
Well, thank you.
I did that right.
You did.
James Hall is a candidate of the Justice, Peace, and Security designation. He is an attorney who practices primarily in the area of labor and employment law. He has written a book on terrorist threats to our country, and in 2002 and 2004 ran for Congress in this district on a Justice, Peace, and National Security platform. The father of 3 grown children, he has lived in Arlington for 35 years. He has been active in a variety of community affairs in his hometown. He's a longtime member of the National Writers Union and the National Center for Employee Ownership. A graduate of Harvard College, James Hall received his Juris Doctor degree from the New York University School of Law. Mr. Hall, would you please give your opening statement?
Good, thank you, and thanks to the Winchester and Waltham Leagues for sponsoring this forum. We appreciate it. I am running for Congress to help bring about the goal of Presidents John Kennedy and Ronald Reagan to eliminate nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction from our Earth. President Kennedy warned that weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. President Reagan stated, "There have been times in the past when we thought the world was coming to an end, but never anything like this." I am running for Congress because we human beings can realize the goal of Presidents Kennedy and Reagan and so many others. We can abolish war. we can end terrorism, we can achieve peace on earth, and establish a bright and prosperous future for ourselves and our children. Indeed, we can be optimistic. We can and will do so, because not only can we envision, we are in fact building the kind of global human community that will neither want nor need the weapons of war. We can create a just, peaceful, and secure world because democracy, liberty, equality, justice, the rule of law, tolerance, and caring are not just American or Western values, they are universal human values. These human rights are being embraced and advanced around the world. Just in the last half century, we have seen free and democratic forms of government spread around the globe. Tremendous gains in civil rights, equal rights for women, and respect for individual liberties. The virtual end of colonialism and the overthrow of communism and other totalitarian regimes. And we human beings are in control of our fate. We can choose to have a just, peaceful, and secure world that respects, affirms, and is governed by the human rights values we all share. We in our congressional district can vote for this world on December 10th. Thank you for your consideration of my candidacy.
Now we start the question and answer part of the interview. Candidates have not seen the questions in advance. Questions were solicited in advance from the public. Responses will be 1 minute 30 seconds. I may follow up if it seems appropriate, and I will state the time for a response. There will be approximately 10 to 11 questions in the time we have. When you arrive in Congress, what will be your top priorities for the 5th District?
Well, I think the top priority for all of us is the question of how we achieve peace in the world. I mean, this is the most important question that is faced. I think we increasingly recognize the danger we are in from our weapons of mass destruction. And there are great concern about we have to find a path to peace. So that would be my major priority. It might seem like that's distant from the 5th District, but indeed it's something that is crucial for all of us. And so that would be it. Certainly then I would feel that what we want to do is also spend our resources in the areas where we have good social benefit. I think we should concentrate our spending in the areas of health, education, welfare of the people. So that would be the areas that I would think to do. I think it's also important, by the way, to say that as a person who's not a member of a party, that I would certainly be there to make the effort to bridge gaps between the Democrats and Republicans. As somebody who would not be aligned with either party, I would be able to hopefully cross party lines to try to find solutions to the problems that we have.
Thank you. The term gridlock is increasingly used to describe Congress. What will you do to make the legislative process work more effectively?
Right, very good. And let me say that in going around the district collecting signatures on my nomination papers, this was an area all around the district where people were absolutely disgusted with what is going on in Washington. I heard it in every community that people were disappointed with our representatives in Congress, how there was the gridlock, how there is this hyper-partisanship. As I've already said, I think one of the advantages of my being elected would be that I'm not a member of either party and could work with both. And I would be working across party lines for that purpose. And the main issue I raise, as I say, this issue of how we achieve peace, how we end the threat we've brought to our existence by our nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction, is a nonpartisan issue. I mean, it's a matter that's been a goal of, as I indicated, Presidents Kennedy, Reagan, in fact, every president from Dwight Eisenhower to the present. And I could work across party lines on this. Interestingly enough, one of the representatives in Congress who's most involved in this is Representative Jeff Fortenberry, a Republican of Nebraska. He's the co-chair of a Congressional Nuclear Security Working Group. So those would be the kind of people I would look to work with. In addition, as I say, on every issue, to look for what's the real solution, not what my party is advocating, but what do we do to really solve the problems that we have.
A little follow-up there.
Mm-hmm.
Is the two-party system working? You have 30 seconds.
Well, certainly it is not. And I think it's because of this hyper-partisanship that exists. I mean, it is too bad that there's just this, it's almost a feeling that if the other party is in favor of it, we're going to be opposed to it. And that has to end. I mean, we have to look at how do we, in fact, get solutions to problems, not how do we oppose the other party.
Thank you. Do you agree with the Citizens United decision, which opened up corporation spending to political campaigns?
I do not agree with that decision. It is a decision of the United States Supreme Court, which stands at this point, so that the only way to overturn that decision at this point is with a constitutional amendment, which some which some groups and individuals are working towards. I think, and I don't have any problem with that effort to overturn the Citizens United decision in that fashion. But I think the real solution to the whole matter of the influence of money in politics and how it seems that big, powerful interests have taken control of the political process. I think the real solution there is to have public financing of campaigns, and that's what I would work for. We did have this passed in Massachusetts on a state basis back in the 1990s, which the established politicians weren't really in favor of. But if you had public financing of campaigns, and it's been successful in certain states, Maine, Arizona, and so on, that I think is the real way to try to reduce and eliminate the real unfortunate influence of big money, big vested interests in politics.
As a little backup, do we need disclosure of funding sources?
Well, absolutely. We should, and as it...
You have 30 seconds, I
okay,
should have told you. Sorry.
Very good, thank you. And as we found, it's interesting, in the Boston mayoral election, which we didn't go through in the 5th district, we're not part of, none of Boston is in our district, but there was great concern about how outside money was spent basically at the last minute in the Boston mayoral election without that having to be reported until some months later. So there's the thought that there has to be immediate disclosure, and I would certainly be in favor of that.
Thank you. Do you think that financial markets need government regulation?
Absolutely. I think they do. And I think we've found that generally, and I am a supporter of the free enterprise system, of capitalism and so on, but in all areas, I think it needs to be regulated, overseen, and this could be in areas of the safety of products, food safety, workplace regulations, and certainly this is true in financial regulations as well. The free enterprise system does very well in certain regards, but the interest of those in the free enterprise system is to make money. And while there's nothing at all wrong with that, that sometimes can not lead to what's best for the public. And so while I say would agree with there being a free financial system, free economic institutions, they definitely need to be regulated. And I think, for instance, the regulations that were passed in Congress a few years ago under the leadership of President Obama were the correct regulations, and I was disappointed that there was some opposition to that. So,
As a follow-up, you've sort of alluded to this in your answer, but just for a little more information. What do you think should be the first step?
In terms of financial
In terms of
regulation?
financial regulation, yeah.
Right.
You've alluded to that.
Well, I think it might be really a whole change in attitude that, as we found with the almost collapse of the financial system back in 2007, there was this thought that, oh, well, the financial bodies the private financial organizations are too big to fail. And I think there maybe just has to be basic education that, look, we need to have entirely different thinking about our financial system, have realistic approaches to the whole matter of how our enterprise system works.
Thank you. It has been 12 years since 9/11. Is it time to review our Homeland Security policy to evaluate its effectiveness and the trade-offs we are making with our privacy? And you have a minute, 30 seconds.
Right, good, thank you. Yes, as was pointed out in the introduction, I ran for Congress in 2002 and 2004. And I opposed the USA Patriot Act, which I thought was a knee-jerk reaction to the 9/11 attacks. And this thought that, oh, well, we immediately have to allow for intrusion into our civil liberties and privacy in order to be able to combat terrorism. I think what has to be done is certainly we have to have robust intelligence and stop terrorism and other threats to our country before they can be brought about. But this effort on the part of the National Security Agency to have this widespread going into our emails, our phone calls, and so on, I think that's wrong. And I think the obligation of those who think it has to be done is to show to us how that has supposedly really worked. And that's, of course, not for the National Security Agency to provide details, not give us names and so on. But until they meet the burden, the National Security Agency and others meet the burden of showing why those invasions into our privacy and our civil liberties are necessary, I think we need to oppose them. I think they're wrong. And I'm confident for the most part they aren't the best way to try to gather intelligence.
Thank you. Do you support any federal controls on firearms? If so, to what extent?
Yes, I think there definitely should be reasonable regulations of firearms and guns. And again, that is something, interestingly enough, that I found as I was around the district campaigning, talking with people. Certainly ran into a number of gun owners who felt strongly that their right to have a gun should be protected and so on. But we're not opposed to regulation and reasonable regulation. Some of those are, for instance, we should ban assault weapons. We could have regulations such as gun safety classes for people who are purchasing their first gun, gun safety locks, certainly registration and permits for guns. We could have, as I say, certainly better background checks. We should have background checks that are universal and not have this gun show exception. So yes, those are the kinds of matters I think we need to be looking into. Let me also say that while obviously I support what I think, and many people I would agree, is reasonable gun regulation, by itself, let's not kid ourselves, that's not going to end all violence in our society, unfortunately. Among other things that have been talked about, which I agree with, are we have to have better mental health programs, because so many, unfortunately, of these mass shooters are people who, hopefully, with the right care, could have been prevented from engaging in the violence they did and getting firearms.
Thank you. Given current realities, do you think we should continue to enforce the Affordable Care Act?
Well, yes, I think we should. My position on health care is that I think good health care is a basic human right. everybody is entitled to good health care. And the Affordable Care Act was a good step forward in that it gave universal coverage. It prevented people from not being able to get insurance on the basis of pre-existing conditions. And those were good advances. And in that respect, I support the Affordable Care Act. But it's not the best way to solve the health care problem. The best way is by single-payer universal health care. And a system like that, by the way, would have a lot of advantages. I'm not a big fan of, under the Affordable Care Act, of individual mandates and employer mandates. If you had, a universal single-payer health care plan, similar, like Medicare for all people, you wouldn't have to worry about, you wouldn't have to have individual mandates, employer mandates. You would save a tremendous amount of money. It's estimated that 22% of all our healthcare dollars go into administrative costs and so on, which would be greatly reduced if you didn't have this plethora of different insurance carriers and insurance regulations and so on. So that I think we have to move beyond the Affordable Care Act and move to, as I say, a single-payer universal care plan.
I'm going to give you some follow-up time on this.
Good, thank you. It's an important issue,
yes.
No question. Yeah.
Would you make any adjustments to the current law? You've already alluded to some. Mm-hmm. You have 30 seconds.
Well, as I say, I mean, I advocate really an entirely different approach. As has been found, and it's understandable when you have, a very complicated piece of legislation attacking an issue as big as healthcare, that it's not going to work smoothly right from the start. So I think some of the delays that have been agreed to with regard to the implementation of the law, I think yes, those are good and necessary to do. So I think we should be looking at certainly tweaks to the system. So,
thank you. Do you believe that we can afford to continue Social Security as it is through the next generation?
Well, yes, I do. And one of the things that I think is important, and I have emphasized in my campaign, is I think we can really shift a lot of the dollars that we spend in the federal government. I think we can greatly reduce our military spending. Right now, our military is geared up for fighting the kind of war that we would have in World War II, or thinking of the Cold War in case we had a war with Russia. Fortunately, those threats and those situations are no longer present. The real dangers we face are these more, terrorist small groups, and so that both in terms of the very basic reason for why we have a military and what are the threats that we face, could we reduce military spending? But also I think there are particular programs, particular weapons programs, that are not needed. And indeed a number of people, even in the military, have pointed that out, that we're spending money we don't need to. So I think we should, we can and we should shift the concern to our social programs. I oppose the Iraq War strongly, also on the basis of the tremendous cost that it would be, and it has been. We spent $2 trillion so far on the Iraq War and its aftermath. And just think of what all the good we could do if that $2 trillion had spent for my thought, good social purposes.
Now I am going to ask another follow-up, and this time I'm going to give you a minute.
Okay.
What changes would you propose to make to Social Security and or other aspects of our retirement system?
Right. I think they're good. While I basically support the Social Security system and so on, I think certain things can be done. We already have increased the retirement age for future generations with regard to being eligible for full Social Security. Given that we fortunately are living healthier longer, I think those kinds of things can be done Whereas before, it was thought, well, 65 was really the point of, that's the end of your working life. Fortunately, we're finding out that for most people, is not the case. And that's good. And so certainly we can look to make some adjustments to Social Security that would save money. And we could also think of, okay, those people who already have sufficient wealth, could there be some adjustments to their Social Security? But the basic program I definitely support.
Thank you. Income inequality has produced extremes in the distribution of wealth. Is this a problem, and why do you think this has occurred?
Well, it has occurred, I think, in part because there has, I guess, the thought that there should be this untrammeled ability to accumulate wealth. And certainly, again, there's no reason, I don't oppose people engaging in economic activities to make money. I think it produces a very strong economy and so on. But we can do certain things to try to alleviate the fact that there has been tremendous and building inequality. And certain areas I would institute, if I was able to, a more progressive tax system, for instance, and have people within lower income brackets be able to keep more of their money and so on. Certainly investing in education and other programs to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be able to get a good job, have the background necessary for very productive, positive, gainful employment. Those are the kinds of things we should do. I think the thought that, hey, we build the strongest economy from the middle class out is correct. And programs to try to strengthen, as I say, education, opportunity, those are matters that would help with regard to reducing the income inequality.
Well, once again, I'm going to give you a follow-up question, and you will have 1 minute.
Good, thank you.
What, if anything, and you've alluded to some of these previously, should be done to reduce or reverse this trend?
Well, as I say, I think the area, as I say, of changing our tax system, and one of the things, is our economy has changed so much too. In the past, as some of us who were around in the 1950s and 60s and 70s know, we had a real manufacturing-based economy, and that produced many good middle-class jobs and so on. A lot of those jobs have gone overseas, and we've had more of an economy on service-based with lower paid jobs in areas such as fast food restaurants, laundries, and so on. I think we could, especially in those areas, increase the minimum wage. And I would advocate not only increasing the minimum wage, but really looking to establish a livable wage as the bottom. It's a shame that people who could make the minimum wage could still live in poverty, and we should look to end that.
Well, I have a follow-up here to ask, and it is exactly that question, so you have another minute.
Okay, great, thank you.
Should the minimum wage be raised? Why or why not?
Yeah, definitely should be raised. Right now, the minimum wage is $7.25 on the federal level. It's $8 here in Massachusetts. And that is totally inadequate. As I say, you can have people full-time, individuals working full-time, gainfully employed, who could be living in poverty, and that just shouldn't be happening. So definitely increase the minimum wage, and as I say, I think the real goal is not just to have a substantial minimum wage, but a livable wage, so that people who are working, contributing, should be able to have a decent standard of living. Now, that's going to take time. I mean, that can't happen immediately. But I think that's definitely what we should be working for. And increasing the minimum wage is a good first step towards doing that.
Thank you. Would you vote to militarily intervene, and to what extent in the following circumstances, and I'll give you three circumstances. If Iran is surreptitiously building nuclear weapons, if Israel invades Syria, if Syria invades Israel. And you will have a minute, 30 seconds.
Okay, that's it. In terms of Iran, I think no, definitely not military attack upon Iran or military action. And that is even if it turns out that they are, indeed, as they may be, building a nuclear weapon. It's not something that we want to see, and we rightfully are trying to prevent that. But a military attack is not going to solve that problem, and most likely would have disastrous consequences in terms of interruption of oil supplies and certainly a response by Iran and its supporters around the world. We do have to. I'm very strong, as I've said, with regard to we do need to eliminate nuclear weapons. I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, but I think we all in our world have to be looking to how do we solve that problem. And military action is not the way to do it. Israel and Syria, hopefully, of course, there is no military action between Israel and Syria. And I will say that I think we'd have to see how that plays out. I would hope that we would be able, with Israel, with our influence there, to prevent any kind of attack on Syria unless it seemed to be some really dire circumstances which don't exist now. And Syria versus Israel, I think we'd have to look and see. But fortunately, Israel has shown that they have great military capability.
All right, thank you. And the final question.
Right.
What do you think is the primary problem caused by illegal immigration, and what would you do to fix it?
Well, I think the primary problem probably is the employment one, and the thought that illegal immigrants take jobs away from our Americans, our American citizens, and so on. I mean, there are some who say that they are performing jobs in areas where Americans don't want to do that kind of work. You think about farm work, for instance. I don't think that's the case in terms of that with the proper pay, I think many people would be very willing to go out and pick lettuce and grapes and so on. And we have to, with regard to immigration, and I support the Senate-passed immigration bill passed last summer by a bipartisan group of senators. That was one area where bipartisanship actually worked. And in terms of that being politically possible, I think that was the right action to take, and I support that Senate bill. It would require that really crack down, make sure employers are employing people who are legally here. I support the pathway to citizenship, not an easy pathway for those who are already here illegally, but I think that is correct. So I think we have to control our borders. We have to not just allow untrammeled coming into our country by people, but we also have to allow those who are here a path to citizenship if they can meet all the requirements.
Thank you.
Good.
Now it is time for your 1-minute closing statement.
Very good. Good. Very good. Thank you. And again, thank you to the Winchester and Waltham League of Women Voters for sponsoring this session. To achieve real national security, we have to have policies which include to seek and work for peaceful resolutions to all disputes, build international cooperation and solidarity, reduce the social causes of violence and terrorism, strive for disarmament, and above all, provide an admirable example of a free, democratic, and responsible nation wisely using its resources to improve its own infrastructure, education, housing, environment, and healthcare, so that other countries will want to follow our lead. We must recognize that justice, peace, and security in the world all go together. We will not have one without the other two. We, the people of the 5th District, in this congressional election, can help lead the way to a peaceful and prosperous future for all of us in our global human community. More information about my campaign is available at www.jimhallforcongress.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
James Olenti, an independent candidate, was born into a working class family and was the first in his family to go to college. He worked his way through college, sometimes working 3 jobs at a time, and earned a fellowship for graduate school. After earning his master's degree, Jim taught at the high school and college level and coached baseball. In 1981, he entered the business world and has clients from all walks of life, from the working poor to the mega rich, but most of them are in the middle class. Jim's mission is to help people make smarter financial decisions. Now it's time for your opening statement.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Joan, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for this important public service and all the volunteers here at WinCam and the good citizens of Winchester. Thank you very much for inviting me and for having me into your studio in your homes. I am just a common man. For many years, I've listened to good people voice their upsets about the state of our nation and the poor responsiveness of our government. And so finally I've decided to do something about it. I am not affiliated with any party. I'm not affiliated with any special interests or special patrons. I'm financing this on my own. Thomas Jefferson said that a person with courage is a majority in his own right. And so, like any good citizen, I'm considering this my public service to our community and to our district. Men go off to war to fight for what they believe in and what they love, and I'm doing this. I hope to make a difference for the good people of our district by changing the equation in Congress. Only an independent can do that. Sending another Democrat or another Republican to Congress will not change anything, so long as they voice the same old, tired, failed message. Raise taxes, lower taxes. Raise spending, lower spending. And so we need a new voice with new representation. It is my goal to bring a realignment of the Congress with the vast majority of independent voters in the United States who actually represent a majority of the electorate. A recent poll showed that 40% of registered voters were not affiliated with any special party. Only 32% were in the Democratic Party and only 28% in the Independent Party. So I believe we already have a majority, Joan.
Thank you. Now to the questions. When you arrive in Congress, what will be your top priorities for the 5th District? And you will have 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Thank you. The number one priority facing any representative, and especially now, is to encourage policies that will help get our economy humming again. And I intend to do that by implementing what is known as the Purple Plan. The Purple Plan is neither red nor blue, neither Republican nor Democrat. Rather, it is a combination of the two. And I can present this plan with great confidence that it will pass very early on in my tenure as a congressman. The reason is because it was promulgated by my economic advisor, Dr. Lawrence Kotlikoff, who was on the President's Council of Economic Advisors and is a professor of economics at Boston University. And that plan has been endorsed by over 1,000 major economists. And unfortunately, it's gotten nowhere in Congress. So with another budget crisis right ahead of us in January, I feel strongly that we need an independent voice to present this to both parties, serve as a trusted liaison to them, and help bring the agenda forward. The Purple Plan consists of getting America back to work and liberating the great animal spirits of our economy. That includes strengthening Social Security, preserving and strengthening Medicare, and a common sense tax plan that will really raise revenues for our federal government. Thank you.
The term gridlock is increasingly used to describe Congress. What will you do to make the legislative process work more effectively?
That is such a profound question. My presence in Congress will help break the logjam and break the gridlock, because I'm not affiliated with any political party. As a true independent, I'm not beholden to any political party or any failed economic or political doctrine. And therefore, my presence will be a major wake-up call to both parties and the professional politicians who have ceased serving the best interests of the constituents and the best interests of our nation, but rather to further their own careers. And so they really do need a wake-up call. And that is the self-evident virtue of having an independent at this time in the United States Congress. Additionally, I am not beholden to any party or any interest, and therefore I will be a trusted liaison between both of them. And as I develop relationships with Congresspeople, I will be able to present their ideas and bring their agenda forward, and we can cooperatively work together in solving these urgent problems. We don't need more fighting in Congress. We need more light and less heat.
As a follow-up question,
Okay.
is the two-party system working? And you have 30 seconds.
I'll do my best in 30 seconds. You know, there's no mention of any two-party system in our Constitution. The Constitution was made to represent the people, not any special interest and not any special parties. And so this is my doctrine. This is my foundation, and this is my commitment. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would not say that it has failed, but I believe that when people become professional politicians and treat politics as a business and not a service, they're not putting the people's interests first.
Thank you. Do you agree with the Citizens United decision, which opened up corporation spending to political campaigns?
Reluctantly, because spending has been cited in previous Supreme Court cases as an expression of freedom of speech. And therefore, under the current tax code, corporations are treated as people, as persons, with the same rights and benefits as other citizens. As incorrect as that may sound, that's what the current tax code allows. Therefore, I reluctantly agree with it. However, I would rather hack at the root of the evil rather than just the leaves or the branches of it, and fix the tax code, which will give individual citizens greater voice and spending power to voice their political concerns. So this experience in running for Congress has helped me rethink as to whether public financing of campaigns would be helpful, and I'm rather inclined to agree that it would, and that would go a long way to offsetting some of the major corporate monies that are involved in campaign financing.
Do we need, this is a follow-up,
Okay.
do we need disclosure of funding sources? And once again, you have 30 seconds.
Absolutely. We should have full disclosure of all funding sources, both on individual campaign contributions and in PAC monies, political action committees. And in no circumstances should any candidate be allowed to accept funds from outside the United States. And I might go further and say that it might be a very good debate to have as to whether candidates in a state or district-wide election should be allowed to receive funds from outside of that district, because we have a lot of external money coming in, and that skews the field.
Okay, thank you. Do you think that financial markets need government regulation?
Yes, and I'm a financial advisor. The government has not done a very good job at regulating money. In fact, one of the recent crises, and there have been so many of them, had to do with the Madoff scandal. You remember the guy who was cooking the books and ringing up all kinds of false account ledgers, leading people to believe that there was more money in their investment than actually was. When it all came tumbling back down, good people lost a lot of money. We had a gentleman right here in Quincy. He was known as a forensic accountant. And he went in front of the Congress and said, if the entirety of the Securities and Exchange Commission sat all day in Fenway Park and was asked to find first base, they couldn't do it. Well, that's pretty bad. And it's a sad commentary that our very highly paid government executives are not more conscientious and diligent in their scrutiny and regulation of financial markets. I will go further than that. There are a lot of hedge funds that are investing in ways that really tip the balance of the stock market and the bond markets in favor of large organizations. They're investing billions of dollars with tremendous tax advantages. That keeps the little investor out of the stock market. All of this stock market activity now is institutional, not individual, and therefore these hedge funds need much greater regulation.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up.
Okay.
And you will have 1 minute. What do you think should be the first step in government regulation?
Okay. That's an even tougher question than the first
Yes.
one. And while I think about that, I'm going to have a follow-up answer to my previous question, if I may.
Okay.
The hedge funds are also investing in international currencies, the yen, the pound, the euro, and other international currencies. And when they do that, they're changing the value of that money. And that hurts individuals much more than institutions, especially people on fixed incomes, and especially poor people, many of whom on this planet are scratching dirt to make a living. That is harmful and should be taxed at a very high level. So that's the answer, Joan, that the first rule would be to tax those hedge funds at a penurious rate, 70 or 80 or even 90% tax on that mechanized, computerized investment activity.
And a further follow-up, do you think any bank should be regarded as too big to fail? And you have 30 seconds.
Don't need 30 seconds. Dodd-Frank has been a mistake. It has created an unlevel playing field so that large banks are more protected than small local banks. And that protects large banks from scrutiny, regulation, and creates unreasonable requirements upon the smaller banks that the larger banks find much easier to cope with because they have the staff and resources. So I would like the government to take steps to level the playing field in banking and finance.
Thank you. Another subject. It has been 12 years since 9/11. Is it time to review our Homeland Security policy to evaluate its effectiveness and the trade-offs we are making with our privacy?
Yes. Not only is it time, it may very well be past time. We now have government agencies that have such sophisticated computer technology that they can monitor every electronic transmission between persons and record it indefinitely. So this is not only an invasion of personal rights, and we all have the right to privacy, but it's also a violation of the Fourth Amendment of our Constitution, which says that persons shall be secure in their homes and papers and effects. And so the content of our emails and text transmissions and telephone calls is nobody's business, and certainly not the government's. And there are ways, Joan, and to the good people of Winchester, for our law enforcement officials to monitor at-risk individuals and those who are more likely to engage in organized crime or terrorism without violating the privacy rights or the Fourth Amendment rights of innocent citizens.
Thank you. Do you support any federal controls on firearms, and if so, to what extent?
Yes, I do support federal controls on firearms. There is really no need for large, secretive, giant stockpiles of automatic weapons, or even, I think that's what, I'll leave it at that, of automatic weapons. And so the federal government, by virtue of the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency, has records as to where these weapons were manufactured, where they were transferred, bought, and sold. And so there's already a database in that. And that database should be made public to local law enforcement officials so that they know what's going on in their neighborhoods. And if there's something untoward in our communities, then I trust our local officials to take a closer look at what might be going on behind closed doors. Provided, of course, it's in obedience to the Fourth Amendment and the other rights that we have. Another one would be, if I may, thank you.
Yes, you have a little time.
That the federal government should come clean on this gun running scandal. They bought and sold guns illegally across the border to some of these bad guys, these banditos that have been selling drugs, narco-terrorists in the United States. And the federal government knew who they were, because after 2 of our border agents were killed, the federal government rounded them up and captured them within 2 days. 240 bad guys were captured. They knew who they were and where they were, and they shouldn't have been running those guns.
Thank you. Given current realities, do you think we should continue to enforce the Affordable Care Act?
Such high hopes and such poor execution. No business person, and I know you're out there, very hardworking family-owned businesses, no business person would ever allow such a travesty as this. When we put our lives and our property and our fortunes on the line for our families and for our neighbors and our employees and communities, we do that in good faith. And this plan was not drafted in good faith, and it was not delivered in good faith. And so, at this point, the longer we delay this, the better. And there are so many better ways to improve access to health care for persons in need of it. And under no circumstances should persons be forced to purchase something against their own will or forced to pay for benefits that they may not use. This is supposed to be a free country, and the Affordable Care Act invades our freedoms and our privacies in many ways. Therefore, when I'm in Congress, I will present to the Congress a new and different and better health care plan that we can all use if we want to, and which we all can be proud of.
All right, I'm going to ask a follow-up there.
All right.
And it alludes to your last statement. What would you replace it with? We have 1 minute.
Okay, well, that's tall order for 60 short seconds, but we'll do our best. There are many different alternatives to the Affordable Care Act, because it must be recognized that it's not making premiums more affordable. Just the opposite. It makes them less affordable. And for people that can't afford insurance in the first place, that's onerous to the family budget. Remember, the average family income in this country is about $56,000. And with premiums coming in at $800 a month, or almost $9,600 a year, that's a big chunk of change to be spending down the black hole of insurance companies, even with federal subsidies. So, I would promote a plan that reduces waste in Medicare. That savings could then be transferred into an individual account for persons who really do need assistance in asset management cash, and who doesn't at some point or other, especially when we have a health problem. And that cash account can be used for primary health care. And there are other things that we could do too.
Thank you. Do you believe that we can afford to continue Social Security as it is through the next generation?
I wish. Unfortunately not. You know, there comes a time when, due to procrastination or negligence, I've seen this 1,000 times in my job as financial advisor, when things get so bad that we have to make very tough decisions. And if we don't solve it sooner, it's going to get worse later. So, the Social Security plan that I advocate preserves Social Security and strengthens it. For existing retirees, it absolutely must be maintained with no reduction in benefits whatsoever and no increase in commencement rate. It doesn't have to go to age 70. Age 66 is the normal retiring age. However, for younger people, we don't know the exact age because it depends on demographics, the population, incomes, but somewhere around the mid-40s, we can allow them to contribute more to Social Security if they want, and they will have a much greater retirement balance than the Social Security plan presently provides. Furthermore, that money should be inheritable to their next of kin, whether it's a husband or a wife or spouse of the same gender or children or anybody, with the full account balance. And the average account balance now would be equivalent to about $200,000. And for a lot of poor people, that will go a long way toward new homes and businesses and cars and education and really increase economic activity. Keep it out of the government. Keep it in the person's pocket.
Okay, I'm going to ask a follow-up. And we will give you 1 more minute to follow up with this question. What changes would you propose to make to Social Security and/or other aspects of our retirement system? And you've alluded to some of those already.
Yes, well, Social Security could be strengthened and improved without changing the retirement age and without reduction in benefits for current participants. There's actually no need to do that. But what really needs is recognition that Social Security started in the 1930s in a different time, a different place, a different economy, different demographics, and America now, 80 years later, is a different nation with different demographics and different socioeconomic blends and much longer life expectancy. And therefore, we should be able to allow people to have their own personalized, not privatized. This should not be any phony baloney stock market investment, strictly in government securities, which will allow a much greater account balance for the retirees when they eventually retire. Another thing is that later on, and this panel of economic advisors, headed by Dr. Kotlikoff at Boston University, says that we can have some pretty good fine-tuning of that, which will improve cash flows to the beneficiaries when they actually do retire. And that's pretty exciting.
Thank you. Income inequality has produced extremes in the distribution of wealth. Is this a problem, and why do you think this has occurred?
Income inequality has always been a problem. From ancient times to present times, there have always been the haves and the have-nots. And there's little chance of changing that in the extreme, in the ideal. Because, frankly, some people work harder than others, and our work is a reflection of our passions and our skills and our abilities. And so we don't want to have a culture, as immigrants from Soviet Russia testified to me, that everybody makes the same amount of money no matter what they do, because that tends to reduce productivity and reduce happiness rather than increase it. But what could we do? what we should do is repair this tax code, which is really two tax codes, one for the informed and one for the uninformed. And that's why we have, for the informed taxpayers, deductions and preferences and deferrals and exemptions and all sorts of loopholes that the uninformed cannot take advantage of. That's why it's called ordinary income tax. And so, the tax plan that I will propose, I call Lucky 7. And that's very simple. We phase out 100 years of misery, this failed income tax plan, and phase in a Lucky 7 flat 7% consumption tax. It's a winner.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of follow-ups on this question. What, and you have alluded to some just in your last statements there, what, if anything, should be done to reduce or reverse this trend? And you have 1 minute.
To reverse the trend toward income inequality.
Income inequality, yes.
Yes. By providing more opportunity, we will have more economic activity. So, the average taxpayer right here now today in the United States pays about 19% of income to the IRS in federal taxes. There's a funny irony, which is that when we reduce taxes, we increase revenues because there's more economic activity. And with that economic activity, there's more savings, there's more jobs, there are higher wages, and there's much more consumer spending, which creates more economic activity in what we call a virtuous cycle. So, these things will greatly accelerate economic activity, and we need to take a splinter out of the soul of the nation, which is the income tax.
All right, one further follow-up, a rather hot issue. Should the minimum wage be raised? Why or why not? And again, you have 1 minute.
I would like to see the minimum wage regulated less on a federal basis than in preference to a state basis. And so, as much as possible, I would like to recognize the structure put in place by our founders in the Constitution, which recognizes what we call co-sovereignty. And that is, we are citizens of our towns and our state and our federal government, the United States. And rather than have mandates come from Washington, D.C., I know that our state officials and local business people can work out a very comfortable deal. And frankly, I see no reason why the minimum wage cannot be raised without any significant damage to the economy. People who are struggling in minimum wage jobs need all the help they can get. And they're working hard to get a foothold, to get started into the economy, and there's every good reason to give them $2.50 more.
Thank you. Would you vote to militarily intervene, and to what extent, in the following circumstances, and I'm going to give you 3 circumstances. If Iran is surreptitiously building nuclear weapons, if Israel invades Syria, if Syria invades Israel.
Well, as a financial advisor, I've learned never to make predictions. So to ask me to make a prediction or a hypothetical vote is a little bit precarious, Joan. But I can say, as a hard, fast rule, only Congress has the authority to declare war, as Congress represents the will of the people. And while we do expect our president to defend us, under no circumstances should any president undertake offensive military action unless he's acting as commander-in-chief under an authorized declaration of war. So, I'm not so sure that we should be too brazen about war. especially with a country so large as Iran and with such powerful allies that Iran has, such as Russia and China. Rather, I will encourage President Obama to do what he promised to do when he was running for his first term, which is more aggressive diplomacy. And so war should always be seen as an absolute last resort and unavoidable happenstance. Israel can take care of itself. And I'm a great proponent of taking the handcuffs off of Israel and letting the good people defend themselves. So if Israel feels threatened, then I would encourage them to act in their own self-defense. I didn't get to the third point, Joan. Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm becoming a politician. I tend to yak too much.
All right, one final question. What do you think is the primary problem caused by illegal immigration, and what would you do to fix it?
The primary problem caused by illegal immigration is, one, that people have violated a very important precept of civilization. They broke the law. And we understand that people have nothing. We understand that they want a better life for themselves and their families. We yearn passionately for legal immigration, the way my great-grandparents came to the United States, and most of us came from somewhere. So, the primary problem cause is that they're showing disrespect for the law. And we should all have respect for the law. And if we don't like the law, then we work to change it, not to ignore it or abuse it. Secondly, when a person comes into a nation, the United States, and endeavors an occupation, irrespective of what it is, they are preventing another person, a citizen, from having that same opportunity, because two people can't do the same job at the same time. So, we have to put sanctions on entry into the country, and that starts with making illegal immigration actually illegal. That has two components. One, persons who have entered the country illegally should be brought to account for that with some form of sanction or penalty or tax, recognition of it, some type of reporting. And secondly, employers who hire illegal aliens should be fined, maybe to the point of felony. We can work it out.
Thank you very much for your answers. Now it's time for your 1-minute closing statement.
Again, thank you so much, Joan, and to the League of Women Voters and the good volunteers here at WinCam and the citizens of Winchester. I'm new to public life. I never thought I'd be running for office, and I never thought that I'd be running for United States Congress. But the stars have aligned, and here I am. You see, we have our hands full in the United States right now, and it's not because we're not able to govern ourselves. We are. Because if we can't govern ourselves, well, who can we trust to govern us? And so, what is really needed is to break this logjam by inserting a new ingredient into the formula. And that new ingredient is me, a representative from the little old Fifth, to go down to Washington and tell these professional politicians that we the people have had enough. No majority, no party has a majority in the electorate. As I stated, only 32% are Democrat and 28% Republican. We have exciting work in front of us, and we can do this, and the time is now.
Thank you. As I stated in my welcoming remarks, Catherine Clark's schedule did not permit her to participate in this candidate interview. She has supplied this statement. I would like to thank the Winchester League of Women Voters for the opportunity to submit a statement for their forum, and I would also like to apologize for not being able to appear tonight in person. I am so proud of the campaign we have run because I believe ours is a cause worth fighting for. A cause that says we are a better country when we fight to provide people with health care instead of shutting down the government to take it away. A cause that says your daughters should be paid the same as my sons when they do the same work. A cause that says we will not let the NRA win. We will continue to fight to end gun violence until there are no more mothers mourning the loss of a child and communities torn apart at the seams. A cause that says protecting Social Security and Medicare is about more than protecting our seniors. It's about keeping a promise. A promise that says we will not let you down and we will not pay for government's mistakes on the backs of those who need it most. A cause that says Republican extremists have to stop attacking women's rights and start solving the issues facing our families. We won the Democratic primary not just because of the strength of our message, but because of the passion of our messengers. They are the backbone of our campaign. We need to keep fighting so that the issues that we talk about around our kitchen tables are the same issues on the table in Congress. As I traveled around this district, people kept asking me, with all the craziness in Washington, why on earth would you want to go to Congress? And after the government shut down, I got that question even more. But you know what? As dysfunctional as DC is, I've always believed that no matter how bad it gets, there's always a better way forward. So that every child can have a great education, so that everyone who works a full-time job can afford to take care of their family, so that every American can have access to health care, so that every senior can retire in dignity, and so that everyone can have a fair shot at the American dream. With your help on December 10th, I'm going to go to Congress and do my part to bring your voice and your family's concerns to the table in Washington. Thank you all very much. That was a statement from Democratic candidate Catherine Clark. Thanks to WinCam Cable for filming the interviews live, which will be rebroadcast several times on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 37, and on demand at www.wincam.org before the December 10th election. WinCam is also making this broadcast available for download to cable stations located within the 5th Congressional District via mymasstv.org and pegmedia.org. To all of you who are registered voters in the 5th Congressional District, please go to the polls on Tuesday, December 10th and vote. The polls will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The League of Women Voters encourages all eligible voters to vote. This interview has been sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Winchester and Waltham. Thank you very much.